All right, welcome back to part 2 of this build. In this episode, we are talking exclusively about the helmet. No long drawn out intro this time, we're just going to dive right into it. This helmet is based off of the statue from Premium Collectibles Studios. As far as I'm aware, this is an original design. It's not based on any pre-existing media. No comic books, movies, or TV shows, or anything like that. It's all original as far as I'm aware. I have templates up on my website for the entire build, and they're all yours, free of charge. Links in the description. This started with your standard casting process, starting with some aluminum foil and then some plastic wrap. I used the aluminum foil first as a barrier and to add a little extra bulk to the casting. And once I wrapped my head in plastic wrap, making sure not to suffocate myself, I then started adding duct tape to begin the pattern making process. Once I had my cast, I traced my features, drew a center line, and then cut myself free of the cast. Then I moved over to the face mask, using some foil to mold the shape of my nose, cheek, and jaw, and then making a duct tape template from this. The face mask took a lot of trial and error to try and get right, but once I finally found a shape that I was happy with, I then transferred that to foam, cut it out, and put it together. This eventually took a couple tries to get right, and I had to trim the chin later on. With the face mask made, I moved back to the helmet, now having something to tie it together in the front. The dome of the helmet had similar points and bevels to the gauntlets in the previous video. My thought process was that if I couldn't get it right with the template, I always have more foam clay just like last time. But fortunately, with some paper, I managed to make the template for this work. To give a little more visual example, since I actually still have this is my aluminum foil cap. So it actually fits onto my head pretty good. Kind of. Pushes my ears out. I look like a complete idiot, which is good because I am one. But what I want to talk about though is the construction paper right here. You can see that I started actually building up the shape of where those bevels are inside the dome with that. And when I made my duct tape template on top of that, I then kind of used those high points as reference. Wasn't 100% perfect because I didn't really build out the actual bevels from it, but the end result did actually create good bevels. So those kind of worked out in the end anyway. So I think without this, it would have made everything a lot more tighter. So this gave it that little extra bulk and all that to kind of help expand the dome a little bit. And after transferring that to foam, the end result turned out pretty good. Up next would be the armor plates around the helmet. I used construction paper to make templates for these as well. You'd think these would just be straight pieces, but they all have a slight curve to them, and they all bevel right here along the center. In the end, I do wish I could have fanned this whole plating thing out just a little bit farther, especially considering pretty much every other version is so wide at the base. But this version from PCS is a little more form-fitting and practical, so that's fine. For the trim around the base of the dome, I wrapped some duct tape around the base and then drew out the design that's on the helmet. It's kind of hard to see after the spikes are put on the helmet. The template piece looks almost like a bone at the very ends. I only traced out the one half, and then inverted it again to make one whole piece that then wraps around the whole helmet. I don't seem to show it, but on each individual piece of armor around the base of the helmet, I had put a 2mm piece of foam trimming around each piece. But after gluing down the trim around the base of the dome, I then started layering each piece of the plating, going from the dome down to the shoulders, layering each piece one at a time, each piece being slightly bigger and a slightly different shape, to pull the armor plating out farther and farther away from the dome. For the bottom trim, I laid the helmet down and traced the bottom portion of the helmet. The trim around the bottom will be a two-piece 90-degree angle triangle that runs around the base and points out in the front. The upper portion would be a little more difficult, using scrap paper taped together to build the shape as I went around. From there, I needed to attach the face cover. This took several attempts to get the placement right, and it didn't help that I couldn't see crap without my glasses. I needed to have good visibility, but it needed to be high enough to look right, and the side profile needed to be the right angle, and my giant nose sure didn't help the situation. But I eventually found a decent spot and glued it all in place. With that all on, I finally got to work making the spikes on the helmet. This was all made with scrap cardstock paper, just playing around with it until I got the angles that I liked, making adjustments after adjustments. I then transferred that template out to foam and then glued it together. After cleaning it all up with the Dremel, just like I did with the face cover, I did more test fits to see how high or low I needed it placed by using my phone's camera, because I'm blind as a bat without my glasses. And with that finally on, the only thing left was to detail the rest of the helmet. I started by placing googly eyes where the rivets on the helmet were, just putting some contact cement where I wanted them and then pressing them on. I didn't wait for the contact cement to dry with this. Once the googly eyes were on, it stayed put unless you moved it. So I didn't touch it and just let it dry where it was. And once the googly eyes were all in place, I needed to do something with the threading. I drew out all the spots where they should be, and cut a bunch of 2-inch sections of yarn. I then poked a hole with an X-Acto knife and used a crochet hook to pull the yarn through. And once all those were in, I went through on the inside of the helmet with hot glue to secure all the yarn. And from there, the helmet was done and ready for paint. Well, not paint yet. It still needed sealed, primed, and then painted. That will all come later when I cover the paint section for everything. So as far as that goes now, this is pretty much done for this video at least. Let's talk about this a little bit before we head out. It's not perfect. It's not 100% perfect. There's a lot of things I wish I could fix on it. And not to mention, the screen's going to get very cluttered here in a second. This was not my first attempt. These are pieces from my first attempt. What I did not show in the video was that this was my second attempt at making the entire helmet. Not just the entire helmet, the entire template process too. As you can tell, this dome turned out very, very bad. I thought I was going to be lazy and skip out on the extra pieces here, which you can see here, kind of. Yes, this little piece here that runs up around. So you got like a piece here and this little piece here, and then that connects to that. That is entirely missing on this. And that is what made this entire thing look like crap. And the trash that goes. Visor didn't turn out that bad, but I made multiple versions of it and I kind of played with it a little bit before I found the right one that I wanted. So I actually made 2 of these. I'm not super happy with the visor on this one, or the mask, I guess. Same with the visor. I still needed to work on the placement of it all. It does not help that I have a huge nose, so any kind of mask is right up against there and squishing my nose the entire time. But for me, this was a Halloween costume, so I did not care. Like I mentioned in my last video, this is just my Halloween costume, and my Halloween costumes I use for the roller skating rinks I go to. It's the only time of year where I can kind of like dive into my 2 favorite hobbies at the same time, cosplay and roller skating. So I put together a real quick costume in like a month, maybe a month and a half, just to roller skate in for a weekend or 2, and that's it. But there's some extra detail on here too that I will go into later, like all the blood splatter and stuff like that. But in the meantime, I have other videos as well. If this is your first video seeing this, you can go back 1 episode and see me starting to work on all the armor. This finishes all the armor pieces. So coming up next will be sewing, fitment, probably paint. If I can squeeze it all into 1 episode, I will. Worst case scenario, it'll be split into 2. And on top of that, I have 2 more episodes, 2 more bonus episodes, I guess you could say, already made up for the accessories that came with this thing. So until then, I'll see you in the next one.